Good afternoon and welcome back to the Johnson Space Center in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where at this hour the Orbit 3 team of flight controllers is on console, working hand in hand with their colleagues and counterparts at the Russian Mission Control Center across the ocean in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow, overseeing the preparations that will lead to the undocking some 26 and a half minutes from now of the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft from the Poisk module of the International Space Station, the first leg on the trip home for Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, and Fyodor Yurchikhin to wrap up their respective missions with a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan just 39 minutes after sunrise on Sunday morning, which will be Saturday night, our time here in the United States. Everything is going by the book with all of the preparations for the undocking of the Soyuz and the landing preparations in Kazakhstan that we'll talk about in just a moment. Strapped inside the descent module, the centermost section of the three-section Soyuz spacecraft, are the three departing crew members for Expedition 52. In the center seat is the Soyuz commander, Fyodor Yurchikhin. To his left is board engineer number 1, Jack Fischer, who Yurchikhin launched with back on April 20th. And in the right seat, Peggy Whitson, the record-breaking United States astronaut who is coming home with 288 days in space on this, her third long-duration mission, and 665 days in space, aggregate total, good for 8th on the all-time endurance list at the time that she and her crewmates are touching down at 8:22 p.m. Central Time this evening, 9:22 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll talk about statistics in just a moment. The crew climbed inside their Soyuz spacecraft a little less than 3 hours ago. Well, I think we have some video ready of the final farewells and the hatch closure, if we could roll that video. This was the scene in the passageway between the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station and the hatchway to the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft. Final photographs and video taken by the remaining crew that will stay on board. The new station commander, Randy Bresnik of NASA, there in the middle in the red shirt. To his right, Sergei Rosansky, and on the left, Paolo Nespoli of the European Space Agency. There were final photos, and there's Whitson floating back inside the Poisk module for a final series of hugs and handshakes, followed by her crewmates. Whitson again wrapping up almost 10 months in space on this flight, an extended mission. Back in the spring, her mission was extended from June until September to enable a three-person presence on board the International Space Station in the wake of Roscosmos, the Russian space agency's decision not to fly a third cosmonaut with Yurchikhin and Fischer back in April. So a six-person crew on board the International Space Station is about to be halved as the departing Expedition 52 crew undocks a short time from now. The undocking is scheduled at 4:58 p.m. Central Time, 5:58 p.m. Eastern Time. The Soyuz will back away to a safe distance away from the station for the deorbit burn of 4 minutes and 39 seconds that will occur at 7:28 p.m. Central Time, 8:28 p.m. Eastern Time, slowing the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit to begin the trek back through the Earth's atmosphere, with its computers honed in on the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan, just 89 miles to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan. You'll see in a moment the hatches being closed first on the Soyuz side of the docking interface, and then on the station side on the Poisk module. The hatches swung shut at 1:41 on the Soyuz side and 1:43 p.m. Central Time, respectively. The crew then got down to the business of leak checks to make sure that we had an airtight seal at the docking interface. All those leak checks were successful. The crew is suited up in their Sokol launch and entry suits, again with Yurchikhin in the center seat of the descent module, Fischer to his left and Whitson to his right. And again, there at 1:41 p.m. Central Time, a little less than 3 hours ago, the Soyuz hatch was closed. 2 minutes later, the Poisk module hatch was closed, and that started the other procedures of placing the Soyuz on autonomous power, conducting the leak checks, and the crew climbing into their Sokol launch and entry suits, and that's where we are, just 22 minutes away from undocking. Once the undocking command is issued, about 90 seconds before physical separation, the hooks on the Soyuz side of the docking interface will open, and springs on both sides of that docking interface will push off against one another to create the physical separation. There will be two separation burns conducted by the Soyuz vehicle. The first one, just about 3 minutes after undocking, will be an 8-second burn to increase the Soyuz's opening rate by about 0.5 meters per second. That'll be followed 1 minute and 20 seconds later by a second separation burn of 15 seconds in duration to increase that opening rate. And then, of course, 2 orbits later, the Soyuz will be in position for its deorbit burn, 4-minute, 39-second retrograde maneuver to enable it to drop out of orbit for the trip back into the Earth's atmosphere and a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. This view from a balcony camera overlooking the large International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, outside of Moscow, where the Russian flight controllers are in control of all of the activities associated with undocking, entry, and landing for the Soyuz vehicle. We have an animation that depicts everything from undocking to landing that we can roll right now, and I'll explain all of the particulars of that. The undocking, again, scheduled a short time from now at 4:58 p.m. The Soyuz will back away to a safe distance from the station for the deorbit burn of 4 minutes and 39 seconds in duration that will slow the Soyuz down, enabling it to drop out of orbit to begin its trek back into the Earth's atmosphere. Just before reaching the Earth's atmosphere, the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz will take place. The center section, or the descent module, is where the crew is strapped into its seats and protected by the heat-repelling heat shield at the base of the Soyuz spacecraft. Temperatures will build to about 2,500 degrees around the Soyuz as it enters the atmosphere. That will be followed by the command to open up the parachutes, first a series of drogue chutes, then pilot chutes, and then, of course, the large main chute that you're accustomed to seeing. Just a few seconds before touchdown, the Soyuz's soft landing engines, or braking rockets, will be fired one final time, just a second or two before touchdown, and the Soyuz will be home. The target for the Soyuz landing is a remote site some 89 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, where search and recovery forces belonging to Rosaviatsa and including a team of NASA specialists who have been in Kazakhstan for the past few days will quickly recover the crew and bring them into a nearby medical tent for initial tests. At this hour in Zhezkazgan, the Russian search and recovery forces and the NASA personnel are in the process of getting ready to leave their hotel for the Zhezkazgan airport, where they will board a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters to fly in sequential fashion from Zhezkazgan down to the landing site. Other Mi-8 helicopters will go further to the southwest toward the ballistic landing site that would be in play in the unlikely event that the Soyuz would incur some technical issue that would cause it to land short of its nominal landing site. But everything is expected to be in good shape for the last phase of this mission that will bring home Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, and Fyodor Yurchikhin to wrap up their respective missions. The one modified item of interest here is that because of Hurricane Harvey, the NASA Gulfstream jet that typically is based in Karaganda to bring home the American or international partner crew members directly to Houston never was able to leave Houston in time, and so the International Space Station Partnership, showing its mettle, was able to have a European Space Agency aircraft fly from Cologne, Germany, and the European Astronaut Center down to Karaganda, where it is currently located. The Whitson and Fischer will board that European Space Agency aircraft after they are returned by helicopter from the landing site to Karaganda, and that aircraft will fly back to Cologne, Germany. The NASA Gulfstream jet was able to get off the ground in Houston in the very early this morning, not the wee hours, but about 8 o'clock this morning, Central Time, and it is about to land in Cologne. That NASA support team will overnight in Cologne and will take a handoff of Whitson and Fischer on Sunday after the European Space Agency aircraft delivers the crew to Cologne. So the bottom line is that through the cooperation of the European Space Agency and the other International Space Station partners, Whitson and Fischer will arrive back in Houston on Sunday night about the same time that they would have anyway had the NASA plane flown all the way to Karaganda without interruption. Again, everything is in good shape. We might touch on a couple of statistics here. Peggy Whitson, with her record-breaking mission, will come home this evening with 288 days in space on this flight, 4,623 orbits of the Earth, in a mission spanning 122.2 million statute miles. With this mission spanning 3 increments, expeditions 50, 51, and 52, she will have totaled 665 days in space on her 3 missions, just 8 days fewer than her crewmate, Fyodor Yurchikhin. And of course, she's accrued more days in space than any American astronaut in history. She conducted 4 spacewalks on this particular flight, now with 10 spacewalks in her career, more than any woman in history, 3rd on the all-time list for most spacewalking time. Yurchikhin and Fischer, who launched as a 2-man crew back on April 20th, are wrapping up 136 days in space, 2,176 orbits of the Earth, their mission having spanned 57.5 million statute miles. And of course, this was Fischer's first flight, but for Yurchikhin, wrapping up the 5th flight in his career, he will come home with 673 days in space, good for 7th on the all-time list, just 8 days ahead of Peggy Whitson. The weather at the landing site on Sunday morning, Kazakhstan time, is expected to be ideal for the return of Whitson, Fischer, and Yurchikhin. The forecast is for just a few clouds at 10,000 feet, a visibility of 10 statute miles, light winds, temperature about 77 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a tad warmer than usual on the steppe of Kazakhstan for this time of year, but welcome weather that should hopefully provide good views of the Soyuz during its final descent.
Maybe you can send the next command a little bit earlier. Actually,
just 13 minutes away from the undocking of the Soyuz MS-04. Again, Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, Fyodor Yurchikhin about to depart the spacecraft that for Yurchikhin and Fischer has been their home since April and for Peggy Whitson since last November. At the time of physical separation, Expedition 53 officially begins under the command of NASA's Randy Bresnik. Bresnik took over command of the International Space Station during the change of command ceremony from Yurchikhin yesterday.
Olympia, this is Moscow. Go ahead.
Очередная команда 00:49:00 РДР.
Next command at 0 hours 49 minutes 0 seconds. Yes, we are ready.
Пометьте себе на 41-ю страницу.
The International Space Station flying in an orbit inclined from southwest to northeast, 252 miles above the Earth, crossing the west coast of India just south of Mumbai, in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
R8.
R8.
Correct.
Coming up on the 10-minute mark until undocking.
It will be R8. And after that, R5 2 times. Copy. R8 and then R5 2 times. That's correct. 1 minute left.
Секунд.
30 seconds. To Ivan 2 command.
Yes.
10 seconds. At 0 hours 49 minutes 0 seconds, we issued the E2 command. Schedule purge. Copy. And free drift. Copy. CADU parameters. Normal. Combined propulsion system parameters normal.
Если понимаете сигнал, скажите, как вам больше нравится. На весь экран формат растянуть?
Пока не принимаем картинку.
Do you have video yet? No, not yet.
Хорошо.
So now I need to go to the R command.
Eight minutes away now from undocking.
SSVP format.
Сергей 17.
Хорошо.
And getting ready for the next command. Good.
Пару включили, да?
You activated the light?
Нет, готов.
No, not yet.
Готов? Да. Помол 50, 40, видно, Сергей 17.
S17, Sierra 17 has been sent. Indicator illuminated. Yes, we can see the target. And basically, it's in the center of the crosshairs. S16 is not illuminated. And I sent the Romeo 8 command, copy.
Роман 5.
And now Romeo 5.
И еще раз Роман 5.
And again, Romeo 5.
Почему узкий?
Да, ничего не видно. Ночь.
Why is it narrow angle lens?
Очередная Дмитрий 7, 2055.
The 7 command has been sent at 00 hours, 50 minutes and 30 seconds.
4.5 minutes away from the issuance of the undocking command that will open up the hooks holding the Soyuz vehicle to the Poisk docking module port, to which it has been attached since April.
Минута.
3 minutes. Copy.
Again, the departing crew strapped into their respective seats in the descent module, Fyodor Yurchikhin in the center seat, flanked on his left by board engineer number 1, Jack Fischer, Peggy Whitson to the right of Yurchikhin, about to begin their trip home to wrap up their record-breaking missions. The International Space Station now flying over southwestern China.
Minuten.
2 minutes.
The sun coming.
Очень быстро.
Стоп, Москва, Олимпом.
Moscow, this is Olympus. Go ahead.
Дим, посмотри, пожалуйста, может, пересветкой поиграть все-таки? Солнышко сходит.
Dima, could you check
Once it is freed from the grasp of the International Space Station, the MS-04 vehicle, under Yurchikhin's call sign, you'll hear the word Olympus quite frequently from the Russian flight control team in Korolyov.
Well, it looks to be all right now.
Минута до выдачи команды.
1 minute to send in the D7 command.
Как спиграл, закрыл посадка.
Hoping for soft landing.
30 секунд.
30 seconds.
That was Randy Bresnik wishing his departing crewmates Godspeed and a soft landing, just a minute and a half away from the undocking command.
00:55:30, команда Дмитрий 7.
D7 command at 00 hours 55 minutes.
Команда Дмитрий 7.
Command D7 has been sent. Now D17 waiting.
This is television over Russian ground stations now in the black and white box with the overlaid crosshair. That will display the actual back off of the Soyuz at the time of undocking, standing by for the undocking command to open up the Soyuz hooks.
Copy.
30 секунд.
30 seconds.
Десять.
10 seconds.
5.
5 seconds.
00:56:30 выдали команду Дмитрий 17.
D17 command has been sent at 0 hours 56 minutes. Indicated.
And the Soyuz hooks are now driving open, about 90 seconds away from physical separation.
Please return the video to the monitor. Rotate the monitor.
Ожидаю. Погас механический соединение.
Mechanical connection indicator is not eliminated.
Пересветкой, может быть, наиграть надо было.
Еще
Maybe we should have used AGC mode.
Петр Николаевич, пересветка.
Standing by for physical separation.
AGC mode will be later, after undocking.
около 2 минуты.
About 2 minutes. Indicator is not eliminated.
And undocking confirmed at 4:58 p.m. Central Time
We are observing.
as the International Space Station and the Soyuz flew 252 miles over southeastern Mongolia.
The free drift indicator is not eliminated.
Ребята, удачи на станции.
Guys, good luck to you on the station.
Godspeed.
That was Fyodor Yurchikhin wishing his colleagues good luck aboard the station.
And we have successful undocking. Now the environment and the HUD is pretty similar to
Again,
undocking.
undocking occurring at 4:58 p.m. Central, 5:58 p.m. Eastern, as the station flew over southeastern Mongolia, 252 miles above the Earth.
You can see the mechanical alignment indicator that we've departed from. And also
We
the
are
docking port is now
observing
coming
the
into view.
docking port. It is clean. Copy.
You can also see at the lower left corner the numbers for distance
So
and
there are
the
no
rate
foreign
of closure.
objects on the docking interface. Copy.
Now the rate of closure is indicated as minus 0.10 meters per second, which means that the Soyuz is going away from the space station at a rate of departure of 10 centimeters per second. That is about 4 inches per second.
About a minute away from the first of the two separation burns by the Soyuz. It will be an 8-second burn to increase its separation rate by about a half a meter per second.
Square and the one square on the right, and the target is moving further from us.
Copy.
Олимпы, выдаем R7.
Я могу.
Olympy R7 command is to be sent.
Нет, время включения двигателя, скоро двигатель должен включиться.
So the thruster will be fired automatically. R7 or Romeo 7 command is sent. Copy.
Разверните на весь экран, пожалуйста.
Could you please make it full screen so that we receive the image full screen? Copy. In work.
Как получаете картинку?
How do you see it now? Now we are receiving the image and it is great.
Двигателя.
I'm standing by for the thruster firing. Copy.
Можно разница свет. Работа ДПО.
Есть включение.
The thruster has fired. The PO has fired.
Наблюдаем увеличение скорости на
The first separation burn is underway.
8 seconds.
Есть разворот.
We have maneuver. Copy.
Now the Soyuz into a roll program to reorient itself for the second of the two separation burns.
Yes, the maneuver is
45 градусов.
done.
What you can see up to now is the Soyuz
We are
just
standing by for the GSO of in attitude. Copy.
up to now the Soyuz just from the push from the docking part was drifting away from the station and through orbital mechanics getting some lateral drift, and you can see the pan over the docking part is attached to.
30 seconds.
About 25 seconds away from the second of these two separation burns. This one coming up will be 15 seconds in duration.
And we can now see the Soyuz departing faster and faster with two burns, increasing the departure speed and moving away from the station.
10 секунд до второго
The
импульса.
indicators
So
for
a few
distance
seconds
and
until the second burn.
the indicators for distance and rate of departure that you could just see on the bottom left were stuck on the old values.
We have DPO firing. Copy.
Second separation burn underway. You can see the thruster firings in this image from one of the external cameras on the International Space Station, increasing the opening rate for the Soyuz,
15 seconds.
where 2 orbits from now it will be in position for the deorbit burn that will send it out of low Earth orbit on the route home to a landing in south central Kazakhstan.
Of the time cycle,
And
the
you can see
indicator
Soyuz accelerate to
is not illuminated
actually
or
quite
schedule repressed is
to
not
actually quite a
illuminated.
speed. Usually during docking, since docking is a much more delicate and precise matter, during docking the Soyuz usually doesn't get that fast that close to the station.
12 видно, Иван 1.
Ivan
This
1
is the only time where
is
you get to see the Soyuz move
sent.
that quickly through the camera view.
Так,
Дмитрий 8.
G8
Дмитрий.
or Delta 8,
1 на 3:30 видно, это Дмитрий 8.
3 and 8,
Погас.
and the indicator is not illuminated. The D11 is not illuminated.
17 погас.
17 is not illuminated.
Григорий. 17.
G is not illuminated.
1 погас.
Сергей 11.
11
Погас.
is not illuminated.
Владимир 18.
Vladimir, Victor, V is not illuminated.
18. Видно.
Наблюдаем перекладку
We can see
войска.
the shifting. Copy.
Так.
Перекладка завершена, наблюдаете его?
Now we can see the ground. The shifting has been completed.
Который руль,
12 выданы.
All the commands have been sent.
только руль.
Телевидение нужно вам еще?
Do you need the TV on? Do you want to receive the image, Moscow?
Что паспорт?
Moscow, Olympus.
And there's the MS-04, the Soyuz vehicle with Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, and Fyodor Yurchikhin on board under the call sign of Olympus.
Чтобы легче увидеть.
We can change the filter, make it orange so that it will be easier to look at it. Sounds good, Jack?
Признак спуск есть.
Inaudible.
Давление шагбаллона.
Tank
180.
pressure
1,
80,
71.
81,
Топливо
and the propellant
482.
482 is the propellant. Further, please send A11 command, Alpha 11 command.
11.
Copy.
Я 13 уже говорит.
А на 11, 01, 05, 06, 00.
Alpha 11 is being sent.
Есть один комплект.
Принято.
It is sent.
Готовы выдать. Режим ТВ отключен.
We are ready to send the command G or Grigori 4 and TV deactivated. It's a go. In work.
Выдана команда Григорий 4.
G4 command is sent. Copy.
Over the course of the next 2 hours or so, the crew on board the Soyuz MS-04 will complete their preparations in the descent module in advance of the deorbit burn, and will receive updates from the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the precise location on the ground in Kazakhstan for their landing.
Input the settings for descent. We have the flag descent already.
The latest coordinates for landing, assuming everything goes as planned, would be 47 degrees, 47.2 degrees north latitude, 69.3 degrees east longitude. That's about 89 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, where the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces and NASA personnel are about to depart their hotel within the hour to head to the airport in Zhezkazgan and board a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters to fly in sequential pattern to the landing site and form a racetrack pattern around the landing site awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz spacecraft.
Wonderful view.
Используй это зеркало. Олимпа, передайте, пожалуйста, давление шар-баллонов и топлива.
Olympus, could you please report the spherical tank pressure?
171. Топливо 482.
The first one is 181, the second 171, and the propellant is 482. How copy? Copy.
Soyuz flying 252 miles over the North Pacific Ocean, just south of the Aleutian Island chain.
809. Постоянное давление кислорода 210.
The O2 partial pressure is 210 and the CO2 1.9 and SR pressure was inaudible.
To recap, for those just tuning in, you're looking at the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft with Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, and Fyodor Yurchikhin on board. Having undocked from the International Space Station just about 14 minutes ago at 4:58 p.m. Central, 5:58 p.m. Eastern Time, two engine firing separation burns having taken place to initiate a healthy opening rate for the Soyuz from the International Space Station. The undocking following a very smooth afternoon of pre-undocking preparations, with the departing crew saying farewell to the what is now the Expedition 53 crew, Expedition 53 beginning at the moment of undocking under the command of NASA's Randy Bresnik. Hatches were closed at 1:43 p.m. Central Time on both sides of the docking interface to the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, setting the stage for the undocking of the Soyuz that occurred again at 4:58 p.m. Central, 5:58 p.m. Eastern Time.
Thank you.
From this point on until the deorbit burn that is scheduled at 7:28 and 54 seconds p.m. Central, 8:28 and 54 seconds p.m. Eastern Time, to begin the descent of the Soyuz out of orbit for its landing. This is a relatively quiet period for the crew on board, a chance to once again to review their entry preparations and to set the stage for that deorbit burn that will be a 4-minute, 39-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines to slow the spacecraft down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit.
Товарищи,
О, да. Может быть. На всяком случае.
Угу.
The International Space Station now under the command of NASA's Randy Bresnik as Expedition 53 is officially underway, and the Soyuz vehicle separating slowly but surely from the station, about to pass to the east of the Hawaiian Islands.
Ну, я фото. Ну, формируйте.
Все.
Угу.
Спасибо.
This is Mission Control Houston. A beautiful view of elements of the International Space Station with the Earth as the backdrop as the station flies just to the southeast of the Hawaiian Islands. That vehicle you're looking at is the Soyuz MS-05 vehicle attached to the Rosviet module, which is on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Just 25 minutes ago, the other Soyuz, and the one of interest this evening, the MS-04, undocked from the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the station with Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, and Fyodor Yurchikhin aboard. Undocking at 4:58 p.m. Central Time, 5:58 p.m. Eastern Time, as the station and the Soyuz flew over southeastern Mongolia. Two separation burns now have propelled the Soyuz on a steady course to a safe distance away from the station for the deorbit burn that will be coming up at 7:28 and 54 seconds p.m. Central Time, a little over 2 hours from now. A 4-minute, 39-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit to begin the trek back to Earth. So with that, we'll wrap up our undocking coverage. Everything in great shape. The stage is set for the return to Earth of Peggy Whitson, Fyodor Yurchikhin, and Jack Fischer just a few hours from now. We will resume our coverage a little over an hour and a half from now at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, with all of the developments of the deorbit burn, the deorbit burn, the entry of the Soyuz back to Earth, landing in Kazakhstan, and all the post-landing operations at the landing site itself. So we'll wrap up our coverage. Rejoin us, if you will, an hour and a half from now at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For now, this is Mission Control Houston.
So this wraps up the official coverage of the Soyuz undocking. Now I will very soon close this live stream and basically rename it to the ISS live stream again. Then in about 1.5 hours there's the next live event. I will live stream the deorbit burn, re-entry, landing and recovery of the Soyuz capsule as well. The deorbit burn starting in about 2 hours, and the actual re-entry and landing happening in about 2.5 hours, and then the recovery operations will probably drag on for a little longer. The live stream will probably go for an hour or so after touchdown. Now I will also upload the full unedited footage of these events later, including the farewell and hatch closing and the post-landing recovery operations. With the crew down to 3 crew members right now, the launch of the new 3 crew members is scheduled on September 12th, with Soyuz launching ISS Expedition 53 or 54 in Soyuz MS-06. So this concludes the live coverage of the Soyuz MS-04 undocking from the International Space Station. We'll be back in 1.5 hours with the deorbit burn, and until then, see you then, and thanks for watching.